What if I told you that some of the smartest retiree families in America are quietly buying certain canned foods by the case while everyone else is still filling their carts with the wrong items? And here's why it matters. With grocery prices still unpredictable, supply chain disruptions continuing to affect certain products, and more Americans thinking about emergency preparedness than ever before, the right canned foods could save you hundreds of dollars while giving you real peace of mind. Stay with me because today we're revealing 7 canned foods smart retiree families are secretly buying in bulk, and the final item has become one of the most underrated pantry staples in America. Over the past several weeks, I've been digging through consumer buying trends, emergency preparedness recommendations, retirement budgeting discussions, and reports about long-lasting pantry foods. What I discovered was fascinating. While many people are spending hundreds, even thousands of dollars on expensive survival food kits, experienced retirees are taking a much simpler approach. They're quietly building dependable pantries using affordable canned foods they've trusted for decades. These aren't random purchases. They're carefully chosen foods that last for years, require little or no preparation, provide valuable nutrition, and can help stretch a retirement budget during periods of inflation, unexpected emergencies, or simply those weeks when grocery prices suddenly jump. Today's list isn't about fear, it's about being smart. It's about learning from people who've lived through recessions, hurricanes, blizzards, blackouts, supply shortages, and decades of changing food prices. These families understand something younger shoppers often overlook. A well-stocked pantry isn't just emergency insurance, it's financial insurance. Throughout this countdown, we'll explain why each canned food earned its place, what makes it valuable, and why thousands of experienced shoppers continue buying it in bulk. And before we begin, let me ask you something. Have you noticed higher grocery prices, empty shelves, purchase limits, or products disappearing from your local Walmart, Costco, Kroger, Aldi, or neighborhood grocery store? Tell us in the comments. Your experience may help another family prepare before the next surprise. Now, let's start with a canned food that many people completely ignore. Number 7, canned beans. If there's one food that quietly earns its place in nearly every emergency pantry, it's canned beans. Black beans, pinto beans, kidney beans, navy beans, great northern beans, cannellini beans. The variety is almost endless, and that's one reason retirees continue buying them by the case. Here's the interesting part. Most people think of beans as cheap food. Smart retirees think of them as high-value food. There's a big difference. One can of beans delivers fiber, plant-based protein, minerals, and enough substance to turn a simple meal into something filling. That's incredibly important when you're trying to make every grocery dollar count. Imagine this. You plan to make chili for dinner. Ground beef prices suddenly jump. Instead of skipping the meal entirely, adding extra beans stretches that recipe into several additional servings without sacrificing flavor. That's not settling. That's shopping smarter. Retirees who live through economic downturns have practiced this strategy for decades. They know that extending meals is often more valuable than replacing them. Beans also work with almost everything. Mix them into soups, add them to tacos, use them in burritos, stir them into pasta, combine them with rice, add them to casseroles. Even tossed into a fresh salad, they create a more satisfying meal. That's versatility. And versatility is what makes a pantry resilient. Here's another reason canned beans continue to gain popularity among preparedness-minded families. They're ready to eat. Unlike dried beans that require soaking and long cooking times, canned beans can be eaten almost immediately. That becomes especially valuable during emergencies. Power outage? No problem. Severe storm? Still usable. Unexpected late night? Dinner is already halfway prepared. Retirees understand something younger shoppers often overlook. Convenience isn't laziness. Sometimes convenience saves energy, reduces stress, and prevents expensive takeout meals. Think about those evenings when you're tired after doctor's appointments, helping grandchildren, yard work, or simply running errands all day. Opening one can of beans can turn leftovers into an entirely new dinner. That's money staying in your pocket. Now let's talk about shelf life. Commercially canned beans remain stable for years when stored properly. That means you're not racing against an expiration date like you would with fresh produce. Less waste, less stress, better value. Another overlooked advantage? Beans help diversify your emergency food supply. Many first-time preppers accidentally build pantries filled almost entirely with carbohydrates, pasta, rice, crackers, instant noodles. There's nothing wrong with those foods. But a balanced pantry includes protein, fiber, vegetables, and nutrient-dense foods that keep you feeling satisfied. Beans help fill that gap beautifully. Here's a tip experienced retirees swear by. Instead of buying the exact same bean every time, they slowly build variety. One week it's black beans, next trip it's kidney beans, then pinto beans. Eventually, the pantry contains multiple choices, making meals less repetitive over long periods. That's especially important during emergencies. Nobody enjoys eating the exact same meal every day. A little variety goes a long way toward keeping morale high, because preparedness isn't just about surviving. It's about living comfortably. And speaking of comfort, the next canned food has been warming American kitchens for generations. It's one of the simplest foods on today's list, yet it may also be one of the most comforting. Number 6, canned soup. Walk into almost any retiree's pantry, and there's a good chance you'll find several cans of soup lined up on a shelf. Chicken noodle, vegetable, tomato, beef stew, minestrone, split pea, clam chowder. Each one tells a story. For many Americans, canned soup isn't just food. It's familiarity. It's comfort. It's something that reminds us of snow days, rainy afternoons, or recovering from a cold while someone cared for us. But beyond nostalgia, canned soup has become one of the smartest pantry investments retirees can make. Why? Because it solves multiple problems at once. First, it's incredibly convenient. After a long day, cooking an elaborate dinner isn't always appealing. Some evenings, heating a bowl of soup is exactly what you need. It's quick, it's filling, and cleanup takes only minutes. Second, soup stretches other foods. One can easily become 2 or 3 servings when combined with rice, pasta, canned vegetables, shredded chicken, or leftover meat. That's a simple trick many retirees have mastered. They don't necessarily eat the soup exactly as it comes. They build on it. That transforms a budget-friendly purchase into a hearty homemade meal. Third, soup can reduce food waste. Leftover vegetables? Add them. Half a baked potato? Drop it in. Extra chicken from yesterday's dinner? Perfect. Instead of throwing ingredients away, soup gives them a second life. That's practical wisdom earned through experience. Now let's discuss emergencies. Imagine a winter storm knocks out power for several hours. Once electricity returns, you don't necessarily want to spend hours preparing dinner. A single can of soup provides warmth, comfort, and nourishment with very little effort. That's one reason emergency preparedness experts frequently include canned soup on recommended pantry lists. There's also an emotional side that often gets overlooked. Stress changes how we eat. During uncertain times, people naturally gravitate toward familiar foods. Comfort foods reduce decision fatigue. They make difficult days feel a little more manageable. Experienced retirees understand that preparedness isn't only physical, it's emotional. A pantry should provide reassurance as well as nutrition, and canned soup does exactly that. Here's another shopping habit worth borrowing. Many retirees never buy soup at full price. Instead, they wait for seasonal promotions, store discounts, loyalty rewards, or multi-can sales. When prices drop, they buy enough to last several months. That approach protects them from future price increases while avoiding last-minute grocery trips. Over time, those savings really add up. It's not glamorous, but it's effective. And perhaps that's the biggest lesson throughout today's countdown. The smartest shoppers rarely chase trends. They quietly build dependable habits. They stock up gradually. They rotate their pantry. They replace what they use. And before long, they have something many households wish they had when unexpected situations arise. A pantry that works for them instead of against them. Now, if you thought soup was a pantry essential, the next three canned foods are where this countdown really starts to get interesting. One of them has become a favorite among budget-conscious retirees because it's incredibly affordable, surprisingly nutritious, and can become breakfast, lunch, dinner, or even dessert. We're halfway through our countdown, and by now you've probably noticed something interesting. None of these foods are flashy. None come in expensive survival buckets. None promise miracle nutrition or end-of-the-world marketing. Instead, they're foods that millions of Americans have trusted for generations. That's exactly the point. Smart retiree families know that true preparedness isn't about buying the most expensive products on the shelf. It's about building a pantry filled with foods you'll actually eat, enjoy, and replace regularly. That way, nothing goes to waste. Now let's move on to a canned food that often gets overlooked, even though it may be one of the most versatile items in the entire grocery store. Number 5, canned tomatoes. If you've ever looked inside the pantry of an experienced home cook, chances are you'll find more than just one type of canned tomato. Whole tomatoes, diced tomatoes, crushed tomatoes, tomato sauce, tomato puree, fire-roasted tomatoes. At first, that might seem excessive, but once you understand how often tomatoes are used in everyday cooking, it starts to make perfect sense. Think about how many American meals begin with tomatoes. Spaghetti, chili, homemade soup, beef stew, stuffed peppers, lasagna, sloppy joes, taco meat, pizza sauce. Even a simple vegetable soup often starts with canned tomatoes. Without realizing it, they're the foundation of countless recipes. That's why retirees quietly stock them by the case. They're not buying ingredients, they're buying future meals. Another advantage is consistency. Fresh tomatoes are wonderful during peak growing season, but throughout much of the year they can be expensive, flavorless, or spoil before you get around to using them. Canned tomatoes solve all three problems. They're picked and processed at peak ripeness. They're available year-round, and they're ready whenever you need them. No surprises, no waste, no guilt over throwing away spoiled produce. And if you're living on a retirement budget, reducing waste is just as important as finding good prices. Here's another little-known benefit. One can of tomatoes can completely transform inexpensive pantry staples. Rice suddenly becomes Spanish-style rice. Beans become hearty chili. Pasta turns into a filling family dinner. Ground turkey or beef stretches much further when combined with tomato sauce. That's one reason experienced shoppers rarely think of canned tomatoes as a side item. They see them as a meal multiplier. Let's also talk about shopping strategy. Whenever grocery stores run promotions on canned tomatoes, seasoned retirees often buy enough to last several months. Why? Because tomatoes are one of those ingredients you'll almost certainly use. Buying them during sales means paying yesterday's prices, while everyone else pays tomorrow's prices. That's a simple habit with long-term rewards. Now, here's something many people don't realize until it's too late. During periods of supply chain disruptions, it's often not complete shortages that create problems. It's inconsistency. One week, your favorite brand is fully stocked. The next week, it's gone. Then it returns at a higher price. Then the store limits purchases. That unpredictability is exactly why having a well-stocked pantry reduces stress. Instead of wondering whether the store has what you need, you already know it's waiting at home. That's peace of mind money can't always buy. And speaking of foods that offer both nutrition and convenience, our next item has quietly become one of the healthiest canned foods many retirees keep on hand year-round.